Williams, who've had a bit of a hiatus for 2 weeks because I've just burned the wick at both ends like a moron, thinking, oh, I'll have energy forever, and just been crashing and burning lately. Roger wearing a fantastic shirt, and I don't know if you saw this one. This is it's
No, I haven't seen that one.
It's a little distasteful. It's Gavril Princip assassinating Archduke Franz Ferdinand to set off World War I.
Oh, that's cheerful.
And I really didn't mean to make it like a meme or a disrespectful thing. I truly didn't. If I was going to do that, I would have gone much worse. I would have done like Kennedy. To me, there's something about Gavril Princip that's just like that. I mean, granted, nothing's ever that simple, but
it's one of those bizarre moments in human history. No one even quite knows what the hell went down.
But the fact that it set off World War I, which basically was just the prelude to World War II, mm-hmm. which yielded the Cold War. And now, granted, you could go on that thread forever and be like, and it caused this, which isn't how the things work, but that's one of the clear-cut things where you can see this domino did set off 2 world wars, and the Second World War yielded a Cold War. To me, no one person, no one action has done more for worse.
You could draw a straight line from that to the fact that humans walked on the moon.
Precisely. And with really not that many like leaps or assumptions, like World War I to World War II to capturing Nazis to the space race. I mean, very much so. This asshole led to us walking on the moon, and to me, there's just Dan Carlin, not the comedian George Carlin. Dan Carlin, the historian, has a great 6-part series called Blueprints for Armageddon. And it's about 4 hours each. It's about World War I. It's better than any audiobook I've ever listened to. It's more thrilling than any movie I've ever watched. It's Blueprints for Armageddon, part 1 through 6 by Dan. And one of the things he goes into is he starts one of the sections with Gavril Princip. And just like the way, so it really, again, if I was going for shock value, I could have gone a lot darker than this. Yeah. I think we both know I could go. To me, I thought there really was something. There's something. It's him shooting, but to me, it's very much so. He's pushing one domino, and it's just fascinating to me. And I purposely got it in triple XL. So it exists as a pajama shirt. This isn't something I'm going to be wearing out. But
well, that's kind of the fashion nowadays. I mean, in my generation, we didn't do that. We actually ordered clothes that fit. And but I know it's like starting in the 80s. That seemed to be the thing where everybody wanted like Omar the tent maker make their clothes.
I love it. I love it, man. There's especially like my podcast uniform is I've got some like triple XL like sweatpants. I guess you never see my feet. I wear these every podcast. These like.
So you're doing the Colbert thing. No one knows what's going on underneath the.
Nobody knows. And I ordered a.
Although Colbert isn't doing that anymore because he's back at the.
That's true.
Auditorium.
That's true. So I was wearing. Because I started ordering some of my sweatpants to see how they hold up, and I like them. And I was like, well, I want a big pajama pair, so I ordered triple XL. And it was like a kind of on a whim. So I just took like an uploaded file already, which is just like Ben Franklin, like just dollar bills. And I was like, I'll just have money pajama pants, and they're huge. I mean, these things are huge. It's like 101st Airborne parachute, and like. And I wear those in the evening a lot. As I don't even wear them for the podcast because they're so big they kind of fall off. And so, as you pointed out, Dr. Robert Malone, the inventor of the mRNA vaccine technology, who's been systematically censored online, I had been reaching out to him for a couple weeks. And originally he sent me a response like the first day. He was like, I'm busy right now. And obviously, yeah. And I just couldn't get in touch with him. And I was just like, as I've learned with this podcast, you got to be persistent. There's a fine line between persistence and harassment. And it's just, you try to show you're interested, but also leave them the fuck alone. And I woke up on Wednesday, July 1st, started going to the gym, and was just like, I don't know, something just was like, just try. So I found his website and found a number to contact and called. First ring, pick up. It's his wife, and she's right next to him. They're like, yeah, that'd be great. And I was like, oh, sure. How about today? I was like, sure. How about at 3? And it was 2 hours later, and I was like, okay. Like, okay. The point of all of that is I was not prepared at all. And so I threw on a
didn't show. It did not show. That you did a very professional job on that interview.
Thank you, sir. And I was wearing a collared shirt. But if you'll notice, at one point I got up, and I didn't realize till after I uploaded it, I am wearing the XXL and Franklin pants. And so here I am talking with probably the most topical human in the world, behind maybe Joe Biden or Vladimir Putin, the inventor of the vaccine that everyone on the planet's taking, or the inventor of the technology. I'm talking to him.
Yeah. Well, I've taken it.
Yeah. I'm talking to him with Ben Franklin pants. So take from that what you will.
Yeah. What I liked about both of those interviews is that they were both, I mean, they were not sensational or anything. They were both making the point, though, that all technology is dangerous. I mean, that's simply, power is dangerous.
Yeah.
Technology is power. Power is dangerous. And the thing that heats your house and lights your way and does all of these wonderful things for us can also burn your house down and electrocute you. I mean, that's the way of it. Sometimes these things turn on us if you don't use them right or if you get unlucky. And that's not to say technology is bad. It's not to say that this particular technology is bad. It's just to say, be careful, because if you touch that exposed piece of metal, it might electrocute you. You have to be aware that there are risks. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't do the thing. It means that you should be prepared. If you do the thing, it might not go the way that you expect. And that is a sensible warning. And that's what both of these men were trying to convey. And I think what they hit was an overreaction to the Trump administration trying to pretend that it wasn't a threat at all, and that the vaccine wasn't necessary and it was a waste of time and that we shouldn't do anything. And when that got pushed back, then it got pushed back so far that we couldn't actually acknowledge that there was a downside to the other side. And Google is infamous for not having human-related customer service. And, they want to automate everything by machines. I mean, they are actually the company. You would think, why would Google be trying to develop a self-driving car? Because Google wants to do everything with fucking machines. That's what they do. And that includes customer service. That started, in fact, with customer service. So they don't want to have a human being sit down and think about whether your video is actually offensive or dangerous, or whether you ticked off the keywords that the machine detected that says, oh, this thing violated the guidelines. And I think that they have been kind of pushed into a more normal mode lately, because I don't know if you saw it, but they banned the channel Right Wing Watch.
Yeah. I actually just before this, I talked about that to Dale. But well, they reinstated it.
Yeah, that lasted for about 2 hours, I think, and they got a huge pushback on it, and I think that was when that made them realize that no, at some point you have to assign a human being to take a look and make sure that the thing you're doing is the thing you want to do. Yeah. So anyway, I don't know if we have time to get to it. My plan for the next Curator's reading was to do 4 episodes, episodes 17 through 20, which is the next major minor arc. We probably have time to do it. I think we got like 45 minutes left.
Yeah, I was gonna. For everyone listening, I've got some obligations. So it's gonna do short. Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. I was gonna say we can resume next week with it. We can push it in now. We can do whatever you want.
Or we can just talk about other stuff. I mean, it's been a little while, so it's your joint.
Let's catch up. Let's just catch up. Let's just fucking wait. I also, because I don't want to rush the readings. I don't want it to feel like we gotta, But I was talking about that with Dale, and I was talking about how I was following that. I had never heard of Right Wing Watch. It was just not in my consciousness. And to me, my stance is always the same. Everyone needs to be able to talk. Everyone needs to be able to discuss. And there was an irony in the kind of Twitter shitstorm around that. That was like, you can't ban this. This is censorship. And it was like,
yeah, these aren't the bad guys. These are the guys who watch the bad guys to make sure that they're not doing anything too bad.
But the point to me is, do you see how censorship feels? And people were commenting kind of snarkily, wait, isn't it a private company? Why don't you just go build your own YouTube? Because that's what's been said to me. And people are like, we can't go build our own YouTube. YouTube's like a monopoly. And to me, there was, and I agree with them, there should be no censorship. But you see when that sword swings back, and what starts as censorship of, say, in Alex Jones, you see when that demon gets loose, it takes it. You start your controlled burn to get rid of the brush, but you see what happens when it goes into a forest fire. And to me, it's sure my ego wants to sit there and be like, how does it feel, motherfuckers? But the reality is, like, what do I want more? Do I want the high horse feeling of saying, see how it feels? Or do I want to get to the deeper problem and be like, hey, look, it sucks. Because what happens when, okay, you're a right-wing watch, what happens when you do get censored? To me, it was, which is why I had on Malone. I was like, it's not good when we just start stamping everything out. And to me, I hope that there is something that comes back.
And to be fair about it too, Right Wing Watch and most of the left leaning groups like that aren't trying to censor. They are just calling out. They don't want to stop you from being able to say whatever you're saying. They just want to make sure that if you say it, someone is over your shoulder going, by the way, this guy is being funded by Exxon or whatever.
I'm 100% for right. I'm a conservative. I like Trump. Mm-hmm. I am okay with Right Wing Watch because above all else, above all political leanings, above the flag behind me, above which way I lean left or right, and I think I've argued this well, and I believe I've been consistent, is that there's some core values. And at the core of them all is we have to be free to talk, or we're never going to have a free marketplace of ideas. So again, to me, it was interesting. That was like, no, we're Right Wing Watch. You can't censor us. And to me, that's how it feels when you have me going on there with Dr. Mobeen and Dr. Malone, both saying, hey, if you're in this age group, get the vaccine. There was no anti-vax. This is 5G Illuminati. And to me, that was the importance, is like, you throw the baby out with the bathwater and you start causing more damage than you do good.
Yeah, and the thing is, all they're doing is a variant on something that I was taught many, many, many years ago, which is all toxins.
Your audio was getting crazy just for a second. You're good now.
How about?
No, you're good.
Okay. You've probably heard the phrase, all toxins are drugs, all drugs are toxins.
No.
It's one of those things that's those doctrines that goes around in medical circles, and it's basically that any chemical that is active enough to be useful is probably also active enough to be dangerous under the wrong circumstances. And that's all both of these men were saying, is that for some people, the circumstances may not be right, and you should be careful about it. Now, I was there the first day that I was eligible to get on the waiting list. And 4 days later, I got my first jab of Moderna mRNA vaccine. And I didn't have a problem with it, nor on my second jab. And I got my second jab the day that my wife got her first, because she didn't have the what do they call it? Health problem. I have coronary artery disease. So even though I wasn't 65, I was eligible in phase 3. And the thing is that, I think if you, the thing about COVID is it doesn't kill you the way most viral diseases do. Most viral diseases kill you by messing up enough of your cells that your own cellular mechanisms don't have enough of their workers present to do what they need to do to keep you alive. COVID drives your own immune system apeshit, and that's what kills you. So if you have a reaction to the COVID vaccine that is just faking your cells out to make enough of this protein to get your immune system's attention for a few hours, and that gives you a problem, that actually makes you sick, that probably means you would have had a much worse problem if you got the actual disease,
sure,
which is there for more than a few hours. So my take on that was like, yeah, you get the vaccine, and that if you have a negative reaction to it, thank God that you got the vaccine, because it probably means you needed the vaccine.
Sure.
That's a take on it that I developed before I even got the vaccine myself. And I was like, you hear about this, and it's like, well, if you get a bad reaction to the vaccine, that just means you've had spike protein in your blood for a few hours, just enough to get your immune system's attention, and that causes your immune system to go crazy enough to make you sick. What would your immune system have done if you actually got COVID?
Precisely.
And, I'm pretty sure I had COVID last April. At the time, you couldn't get a test for anything. But I was exposed to one of the first 100 people in Louisiana who tested positive. It was about a week. Roger. It was about a week after that exposure that I almost hit the floor when I got out of bed because my hips hurt so much. I didn't know what was going on. No one had told me that joint pain was one of the symptoms of COVID, because no one knew that yet, except in Wuhan. So I was just, figuring out new ways to tie my shoes because I couldn't bend over. And, it's basically like, okay, well, I'm 56, it's arthritis now.
Yeah.
Why? That's great. And then after about 2 weeks, it magically went away. Now, arthritis doesn't magically go away. So that was when I went online and started searching, and I found out that in Wuhan, where they tested everybody, 16% of the people who tested positive said that their only symptom was joint pain. I was like, oh, so that's what happened. But I still got the vaccine at the first opportunity, and I would advise anyone else to as well, simply because if you have a negative reaction to the vaccine, it probably is an indication that you really, really need the vaccine. And of course, now we have the Delta variant coming on that's much more contagious than the original version that's new and improved. In Louisiana, we're at like about 37%. I want to say, which isn't nearly enough for herd immunity. But on the other hand, we have like 92% of the people who are being hospitalized for COVID are unvaccinated.
Yeah.
So that tells you also, it's like, okay, it's not a perfect defense. I could still get COVID, even though I've been vaccinated and I probably had the disease, but I almost certainly won't end up in the hospital because of it.
Yeah.
Now, on the other hand, I could catch it and spread it to you if you're not vaccinated.
Yeah.
Because I'm not wearing a mask anymore either. It's like everybody's gone, it's like masks, that's so last week. That's, we're not doing that anymore. No one's requiring it. And I'm not going to be that guy that makes a big, messy public statement over it. So It's like, I'm not worried for myself anymore because I've got my defenses. Now, if I go to a place where someone else is wearing a mask or the sign at the door says we still require masks, I'll put a mask on.
Sure.
That's only polite and
private
reasonable. Exactly.
Private fucking company.
if someone is worried about it, that's a sensible worry. I respect that.
Sure.
But I do. I've got several coworkers who aren't going to get vaccinated, and I don't get the sense that they're afraid of the vaccine. What I get the sense is they're fucking lazy, and they just don't want to be bothered. And that's just fucking lazy. I mean, it's I don't have much respect for that, but on the other hand, I'm not going to make a scene about it or anything. I mean, they're not threatening me.
Exactly.
They're screwing. Yeah. So, what do you do?
It's the importance of what we're doing right now and what I did with Dr. Mobeen and Dr. Malone. It's everything we're talking about. And as Dr. Mobeen said, he's like, you can't be pro-vaccine. That's what someone said to him. You can't be pro-vaccine and pro-ivermectin. And he's like, what are you talking about? This isn't sports. This is biomedical science. Some things work. Apples and bananas are both good for you. You don't have to be on one team. But the importance of this is, and I've said this from the beginning, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I have all my fucking vaccines. What Dr. Malone did, what Dr. Mobeen did, what you and I are doing right now, is we are openly discussing it. And when you can openly discuss it, people who were hesitant to get the vaccine go, oh, that's what a reaction is. Oh, okay, yeah, well, sure, I'll get it. The problem is when you carte blanche, carpet bomb, one size fits all, censor everything. Because then you get individuals who, instead of hearing an open discussion from physicians going, oh, that's what spike proteins are, that's what this is. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, okay, I get it. Instead of that, when you just have, thou shall not talk, the hairs start to stand up on your neck and you go, I don't want this. And the true tragedy is it might not be. In the past, in history, we've seen when that's the layout, something horrible happens. But the reality is it might not be something horrible, but the very act. It's like if I have a big guest coming up and I'm like, I can't tell you who the guest is. I can't. But it'd be like if I went so far and I was like, you can't even text me, don't email me, no one's allowed to look at the podcast, I don't answer the door. Well, now people are going to start to be like, Tommy, are you okay? Tommy, like, you've been depressed before. Like, we're getting worried. The thing I might be trying to do, I have a big guest coming, I want to keep it quiet.
Yeah. I'd walked on some other celestial body or something.
You overextend so much, it has a negative impact. And so instead of having an open discussion about side effects and should I get it, should I not, am I in the age group, blah, 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 when you just blanket shut it down, now you have people who are aware, rational, reasonable people going, at first I was hesitant, but now I'm freaked the fuck out because you're not letting me talk. The reality is if you just talk, you see, oh, okay, yeah, I see it. That's the importance of talking.
The thing is, when you do the sort of thing that Google and to a similar extent Facebook has been doing, of just trying to automate the process, and Facebook is bad enough themselves, but Google has a really aggressive policy to the point where our marketing girl is like, if you get a bad review for your company, there's no one to appeal to. Yeah. It can seriously fuck up your business model, and there is no contact that you can go to and say, can we get this reviewed or anything? They simply don't do that.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of automated robots, and if they tick the certain keywords or they get certain inputs, then they set the thing, and there's nothing that you can make them do about it. That apparently is what happened with Right Wing Watch. They put examples of hate speech on their site to warn people, this is what it looks like. This is an example of what these assholes are saying. And because those were on their channel, they got automatically flagged. Oh, you're hosting hate speech. And there was no one to say, well, they're hosting the hate speech to warn people about how bad it is and show them as an example. They just, boom, you're deleted. And, and of course the whole world came down on it. That may be one of the reasons, in fact, that you got a little lenience with because ever since that incident, I think they've probably been a little more careful with that policy.
And I would agree, because my Malone episode is still up, and I was putting it up as like a...
I know you were certain it was going to get taken
I was taking a stance. I was like, well, this is how the podcast goes down. I was just like, fuck it. Here we go. It's still up, which I can only think, let's, instead of...
And it deserves to be up, because if you look at it with any kind of rational
it's just
intent,
a discussion.
Yeah, and it's a very even discussion. It's not anti anything. It's not promoting any kind. In fact, it's not really promoting anything. It's more just, yeah. So apparently, someone may have figured out that they were letting the robots run a little wild over there at Google, but their whole corporate attitude has always been annoying because of that sort of thing. And the thing that I've always said too is, of course, when they were first formed, they were seen as very idealistic company. Their motto is "Don't be evil." And in the year before the IPO, when they started doing some of this really crazy shit, and I was actually one of the first who started to remarking to people, I think they dropped the word "don't" from their motto.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, they brought in a consultant, and they were like, "Hey, we got to streamline this."
Well, they literally did run a thing where they said they realized that their monetization was advertising, and they realized that they were an advertising company and that they should start to act like it. And boy, did they ever. So, before that, they were like, well, our job is to democratize the internet and bring content to people and connect people to the content they need. And then one day somebody did a presentation in a boardroom and said, you guys may not realize it, but you're in the advertising business. And all of a sudden it was Mad Men 2.0.
Yeah. Yeah. Just, have the largest and most vanilla platform so that you can have the most number of advertisers who feel safe going on your...
Yeah. And then you do the most, the least effort, most automated possible job of policing it to make sure it stays within whatever bounds you need to. And of course, where all of these multinational companies are now getting into seriously hot water is the differences between the laws in different countries, because they're different, because they're multinational. What's permitted in the USA, what's permitted in China, what's permitted in Brazil, what's permitted in the European Union are all very different things. And these multinational companies are having to figure out how to deal with that. Because when China tells you, we're not going to let you have access to our billion customers if you don't let us censor certain things, then you either lose the billion customers or you do what the government of that country tells you to do. And meanwhile, all of the people over here in the USA are going, what the hell? Taiwan is actually a country, isn't it? And
you'll get
not if you're in China.
Man, it's speaking of which, on a side note, so China celebrated, or the Communist Party celebrated their 100 years or something. Did you see Xi Jinping? Obviously, I don't speak Mandarin, so obviously I didn't know what the speech was, but what he was wearing, dude, it was the most classical dictator pantsuit. There was a part of me that was like, I respected him staying true to canon. Like, it was just the most perfect amalgamation of dictator pantsuits, and I was just like, okay, the developers of the simulation, they're staying true to their roots.
I'll have to go look that up.
Oh, dude, it's fucking it's beautiful. It's
yeah. And then you got the other side of the coin, the European Union, where they want to make sure that everyone can be forgotten and not be tracked by GPS 24/7, so they can continue to have affairs with their mistresses and stuff, which I really think is what drives that. Honestly,
hilarious. which is fucking hilarious, man. It's when the world leaders are like, oh shit, I can't be banging my side chick. They're like, privacy is important. They're like, you cannot be selling big data. You can't be tracking us, because why do I need to be followed to a seedy motel? Am I not an individual of this great nation? I mean, what does it matter? What does it really matter? Why do you need to track my online purchases? Who I talk to? So what if I put a dress on? And it's just like,
yeah,
it's like no one.
All right, I bought a dildo. What about it? Yeah,
it's like they're defending things no one said. They're like, wait, what? No one accused you of that. They're like, maybe I like to put blush on. Maybe I like to have a woman dress up as a nurse and breastfeed me. People are like, sir, you're in Brussels. You're at a NATO conference. Maybe I like to be spanked. Maybe I'm a bad boy. What does it matter to you? And it's like, dude, just pump the brakes.
But I really think that is, because you've got all of these very long entrenched, wealthy, powerful families, and right now I'm watching my way through the series The Crown about Queen Elizabeth. I'm in the middle of season 2, watching it on Netflix DVD, and there's like an entire arc where they sent Prince Philip off to sail around. He eventually ended up in Australia to open the Olympics, but it's like at every port, they're all banging all the women and writing back home to the lunch club about how great the women are in this country and that country and all. And one of them even explicitly says, it's like, and don't let this get out, because 90% of us are married and our wives would kill us if they knew what we were telling you.
Well, it's fuck. I had a thought in my head. I forgot what I was going to say. Motherfucker.
Ask your mistress.
I'll ask my mistress. Honey. Oh, so I started playing Red Dead Redemption 2, which is I'm just riding around on there's supposed to be a great plot, but I've yet to play it. I've just been, for about 7 days now, I've been riding around on a horse, just shooting people in the face and taking their money. And then I go sell it all at like a pawn shop and buy more shit. That's all I've been doing. I've been having an absolute blast. My guy is dressed in all black and he wears a Jason mask, and I just walk around just doing motherfuckers. And but there's like an area that's clearly supposed to be like New Orleans, like Louisiana. And I didn't when I was first playing, because like the map isn't uncovered. Like you're given a small little, like most games, and as you play more, it's like the map begins to get bigger and bigger, and you start to see it all. And I didn't realize it, and this is one thing I've talked to you about before. When I play games, I don't read anything about them. I don't do the tutorial. I like to be completely surprised. And so I thought this was just like, I was in tech. I just figured it was like, I don't know, Cowboys, Texas, whatever. And like as I'm moving out more and more, I'm like, oh, it's supposed to be like a much smaller kind of rendering of like the United States. There's like the general climates, right? There's like Northeast, there's like Southeast, and so I went down and I was like, oh, so in this area I should be able to find like an almost like a Boston type thing, and it's kind of there. And so I went down south, and it's like, oh, and you're coming on this place called Saint Denis, but it's like Saint Denis, and it's clearly like New Orleans. And there's like the swamp around it, and it's like when you get down there, like your health goes down because it's so hot out, and like you have to be careful of what you wear and stuff. You have to like stay in the shade. For some reason, my simpleton mind has just assumed that this is exactly what your life is like, because you're in Louisiana with like no grounding in reality. So I'm walking around and it's like hazy, and there's people on like horses and women in hoop skirts, and I'm like, oh, this is why Roger wears t-shirts. This is why he doesn't wear hoodies. It's because it's so hot out. And I'm like, no part of my mind is like, yeah, when Roger's at the saloon drinking whiskey and there's a guy in a piano and his wife's in a big feather hat, this is why, and his revolver's on his side. And for like 2 days, my mind was just like, so this is what Roger's life is like. And finally I was like, what is that? When I lived in Maine for like 8 months in my junior year of high school, people would be like, what's Georgia like? Are there farms? And I was like, you guys know Atlanta is like a bigger city than anything in Maine. There's like the busiest airport in the world. There's skyscrapers, highways, really nice advanced research hospitals. Like it's, and they're like, DC.
We have indoor plumbing.
Seriously, they were like, is it like horses? And I was like, it's a sprawling metropolis bigger than Boston. I was like, what the fuck are you talking? And I realized, I remember when I was up there, someone asked me, he says, do you see Ludacris? The rapper. Sure. Oh yeah, no, we all know him, all of us. It's just a small town. We all see him. We go, "There's the black rapper. Hey, Luda," and he says, "Hey, Tom." Like, no, the greater Atlanta area has a circumference of like 200 miles. There's like 30 million people. What the fuck do I see Ludacris? Like, and I was like, yeah, I see him and Ursher. I'm like, fuck yeah. But it took me.
And the thing is, people have so many stereotypes about the New Orleans area because of movies that are so fucked up. For one thing, the swamps are not around New Orleans. What's around New Orleans is the Mississippi River.
Yeah.
The Mississippi River runs right through the middle of the New Orleans metro area. But if you want to sort of like swamps where people talk with the Cajun accent and all that, that's like 150 miles from here in Lafayette.
No, in Red Dead Redemption, it's about 40 seconds on a horse.
Yeah, no, it would on a horse. It would take you a full day to get to a place where people actually speak Cajun French. Or if you go south, then you get to swamps, but people don't speak Cajun there in about an hour on a car, heading toward the Gulf from New Orleans. And also, New Orleans is not on the Gulf of Mexico. We're about 70 or 80 miles inland. It's you get all this crazy shit, and you want to hear an actual New Orleans accent, something that people who actually live in New Orleans go, yeah, darling, I'm gonna go down to the Swaggies and make my groceries. That's the
is that like Cajun French?
What it is that's the Ninth Ward dialect. That it's a fusion of Cajun French and New York banter. It's actually the verbal cues are more New York Northeast, but it's like if you took someone speaking New York Brooklyn patter and played them at half speed.
Okay.
And that's what the Ninth Ward accent sounds like. And of course, that entire culture got dispersed in the diaspora after Katrina because that whole area was under 10 feet of water after Katrina. Yeah. So a lot of those people left and never came back. But there's a guy named Bunny Matthews who draws a comic strip called Dick and Natalie, which is set in the Ninth Ward. And he is actually credited with documenting what he calls some of the wonders of Ninth Ward linguistics. But people don't have any idea about that. It's like normally you see a movie set in New Orleans and you have these people that are like speaking with Cajun accents. No one in fucking New Orleans has a Cajun accent.
Yeah.
You don't even have people in Lafayette speaking with Cajun accents in the town proper. It's a city of 200,000 people. Yeah. You go an hour south of Lafayette now, that's a different story. I have been in a bar where the only words of English the bartender spoke were Jack and Coke. Everything else was Cajun. He had never. That was all he understood. But you get to the city, people. They have television. That people remark on me. It's like I don't seem to have a New Orleans accent. I was born and raised in New Orleans, but my parents are from Mississippi, and we had television. So. I have a little bit of the New Orleans thing in me, but it's all kind of diluted by what you might call the U.S. averaging process. Some of the big things are like the strip of grass in the middle of the road that separates the northbound and the southbound lanes. In most places, that's called a median. Here we call it the neutral ground. And no one quite knows why. But if you come to Louisiana, particularly to New Orleans, people will talk about the neutral ground in the middle of the road. And the most convincing argument that I've heard about that is that back in the 18th and 19th centuries, when duels were a thing, they often had duels in the middle of the road because it was the neutral ground. So, but for whatever, you've got little things like that. But you don't really have the strong regional things. Yeah. That's disappearing everywhere. It's like Stephen King writes a lot of them into his things about the Maine accent stuff. But we went to Maine, I'd say about 10 years, 12 years ago. And you hear that a little bit on the coast now, but You go to any of their larger cities, and you don't hear that stuff as much because they got television sets too. They watch the same TV shows I do.
Yeah, it's and I've found that. I mean, living in Atlanta, living in Portland, Maine. Yeah, this idea that there are these wildly different. The idea that it's like Red Dead Redemption, that it's like this, you're this separated universe, and it's like, dude, it's like if you go to Boston, it's like, what's Boston like? And it's like they have Wi-Fi and airports, and what are you talking? There's Harvard's there, MIT is there. Like, these are who the DoD is contracting for their space-based laser weapons. Like, what do you?
These people helped to invent the internet.
Exactly, and then it's like, well, what's Georgia like? And it's like, dude, I had some like backwoods friends from Georgia, one of whom literally went to Harvard Medical School, and I was like, what do you mean? What's Georgia like? They have the same flat screen iPhones and gigabit Ethernet. They drive a Tesla that they picked up with their Uber that they paid with money that they cashed out from Bitcoin. What do you mean? What is it? These little pockets of culture, they really exist. I mean, you truly got to go out. Even Valdosta, where I lived for 2 years, when I first went there, that was more of like the South than Atlanta ever was. You went there and you, in all the bad ways, you went, oh, this.
Yeah.
But even my 2 years.
Oh, and I've been in places like that too, because you get far enough from the big cities, then you still get, like I said, there are places in Acadiana in the Acadiana parishes where people literally do still speak Cajun French and don't know much English, and there's much of the northern half of the state looks more like Mississippi than New Orleans. People don't realize that. This is one of the interesting things about Louisiana politics, because a lot of, you've got about half the population is in the New Orleans area. They lean very heavily blue. You got about a third of the population that is north of Baton Rouge. They lean very heavily red because they're almost identical in composure to Mississippi and Arkansas. And then you've got Acadiana, which is its own thing. And that is why we have a Democratic governor, and it's why Edwin Edwards got elected 3 times. So you've got that weird mix there. But even in New Orleans, if you want like the stereotypic New Orleans experience, you almost literally have to go to the French Quarter, which is just like 100 blocks.
Yeah,
that's you get out of that, and the further you get from the French Quarter, the more like the rest of the United States it looks, until you get out to the suburbs in New Orleans East and Metairie, and it looks exactly like the rest of the United States, with slab-on-grade houses and TV aerials and satellite dishes and the rest of it. It's the history only lasts as long as the architecture does, basically, down here.
Yeah, it's
yeah, and I get that sense in a lot of other cities too. You get to the core of the city, like a city like Baltimore. New York City is almost like, there's not even anything there left. But you get to a place that does have an old central city, then you'll have some of the old architecture and all. And then, of course, we think, well, it's like, you're hanging out in the French Quarter and there's all these 350-year-old buildings, and you think that's really cool. And then the one time I actually crossed an ocean, I actually did it for work, because the reason I avoid crossing oceans is work. I don't want to be too far away. But they sent me to England to install a system. And there's a 900-year-old castle in the middle of the town that we're staying in that is still in use as a courthouse and a jail.
Jesus. And
you're just walking around in the woods, taking a nature walk, and you'll just run across a plaque. And it's like, oh, this is a 4th century AD Roman bath. You just stumble across this shit that's more than 1,000 years old. It's like everything in the United States is like brand new by comparison.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
And so this is one of the things between us and the Europeans that we have no idea.
Yeah,
they feel the depth of their history just going on a walk in the woods to watch birds or something. You trip over something the Romans left there 1,000 years ago.
Yeah, it's. Yeah, I remember University of Georgia is the oldest public U.S. college. Harvard beats it, but Harvard's private. But there's like a building right near the entrance that there's like debate halls, like the debate team is still there. And I think when I was there, I want to say like the only thing I ever saw, because sometimes I'd walk by there going to like some classes, but it's like right near the front of it, and it was like the newest. They had like a little fucking what am I just kind of not poster or just whatever outside. And it was like the newest thing, and it was like come here to hear debates about like the PPACA, the Patient Protection Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. So this was like 2012, but it was that same building that people were discussing. Uh, it was already about 80 years old when people were discussing whether or not the union should stay together. And it was like that same building. And like that's old as fuck, but it's only 200 and coming up on 240 years old, right? 240, yeah.
Yeah.
You got it.
But you got that sort of thing in the core of old New Orleans, and in a handful of other cities that have that legacy. But then if you take that like Disneyland and try to stereotype that as, okay, this is the New Orleans experience. You realize what a vanishingly small percentage of New Orleanians actually live in the French Quarter.
Yeah.
You know,
it's like thinking Atlanta is like, oh, so you boys are all Confederate flags, and it's like, dude, my friends lived in like high rises in downtown overlooking Hartsfield Jackson where planes are landing from Hong Kong. Like, what? It's, but it made me think, I think it was Joe Rogan that said this several years ago, but he was almost like, if you grow up in a small town, some people get out, but like a lot of people stay. He's like, there's some people, that's the life they want. It's a perfect life for them. They love the small town life. But he's like, you always kind of have those, like this stereotypical, like, right, the guy that's at the bar that, still talking about high school or something. And it's like, but then you have like the person that kind of gets out and goes and becomes something else. It's more of a trope than it is it's kind of reality. But he's like, right, but that's kind of a recurring theme, right? You got away, you went out to the big city and you made something of yourself. His analogy was like, it seems where it's like the cradle of civilization, the Fertile Crescent. He's like, it's almost like that's the small town. Because, I mean, what is the most barbaric area, right? It's tribal warfare in the Middle East. That's the most backwards. That's the most brutal. Women can't show skin. Clitorectomies, like just beheading people because they looked at you the wrong way. It's right. That's where it is. He was like, and it almost seems like as you get away from there, it's almost like getting away from the townies. And he goes, even in the United States, it's like Boston versus like going out west, right? Where it becomes more and more progressive. That's where these things are birthed, right? Like the free love movement, Summer of Love, like Berkeley and shit. Mm-hmm. And he's like, there's this kind of weird thing where it's like the farther and farther you get away, it's almost like a species divulging, or not divulging, like a genetic drift. Yeah. It starts to become its own thing. But it's odd because as what we're saying now is that's becoming less and less of a thing. And we are sort of becoming this weird homogenized things where it's like, sure, the difference between New Hampshire and Georgia, it's like the weather is starkly different and so are the accents. Yeah. But it's like everyone watches Netflix and uses like a laptop. Like,
yeah. Well, and even the weather is getting upside down. I mean, it's like 116 degrees.
We're homogenizing the weather too. Global warming. It's just equality for all. It's temperature equality. It's about time we got to it. But it's
yes. So you can suffocate in your own house in British Columbia
or Mexico City. No one's free. No one gets to escape it, and that's called equality. But you got to think, will that soon start to happen with nations? Will we start to bleed into each other more and more? And it's like that South Park episode from like 15 years ago where that guy, they come back from the future. Everyone looks the same. Everyone's kind of this weird, homogenized, somewhat tan, Asian, African, Hispanic, English, kind of blend together. Everyone's almost androgynous. And they just sort of blend together. Is that where we're going? Or is the new thing going to be breaking away to a new planet? But I have to, because I got to go in like 5 minutes, but I have to cycle back to. So yeah, for like the last like 72 hours, I've had this image in my head of like Roger dressed as like Colonel Sanders, and I'm like, it's just like as I'm going out in the woods and I'm shooting alligators, there's like you can find weird inbred couples and stuff, and
I do that all the time. I mean, shooting alligators is our hobby around here.
I'm down in New Orleans, and there's like a gun shop run by like Chinese men, and I'm like down there on like the cobblestone, and I'm like clickety clacking on my horse, and I'm like getting my rifle sighted, and I'm just like, so this is what Roger's life is like. No sense of irony, and the worst part is I've been to fucking New Orleans. I interviewed for med school down there, Tulane, December 6th, 2013, because I've got an autistic memory. I went down there. It's a normal fucking city. I landed at an airport, and I took a cab that I got from my iPhone. Nonetheless, in my mind, I'm like, so this is where Roger types up the Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, smoking a pipe while a woman with like a hoop dress is sitting there fanning herself with flowers as John Astor and the Vanderbilts are over there drinking hand tonic whiskey. And I'm like, wow. I'm like, Roger lives such a... And it finally wasn't until about midnight last night that I was like...
Wait a minute.
Geographically, Roger lives in New Orleans. That's the only similar.
As a matter of fact, my dad went to college at Tulane and got his degree from there.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I interviewed there. It was badass.
Yeah, he got his degree from there, a PhD in physics, in fact. And I remember going down to the computer lab back when, while I was playing with my toys, because I was about 4 years old, he would be preparing a deck of Hollerith cards to submit to have them run his computer job to do whatever it was that he was doing in 1967 or whatever. But yeah, it is picturesque. Even in the vicinity of Tulane, you have some interesting architecture and stuff.
Yeah.
But the people are not all that different than they are anywhere else. We do have the Mardi Gras background thing. We have a debutante circuit where the rich people have their kids present themselves, and this is all very old school. But again, that is a vanishingly small fraction of our population that lives those things.
Yeah.
Most of us live no differently than you would in Atlanta or Miami or anywhere else. Particularly anywhere else like Miami, where you get hit by a hurricane once in a while.
Yeah.
Because that's our big thing. And let me tell you, there is nothing like a wildfire or a tornado to make you appreciate hurricanes, because you can see them coming. It's like,
I was gonna say, I also interviewed at Miami, but there's still like this lingering image in my head of everyone down there is like a Cisco music video with like fake tits and like platinum necklaces. And like, I did see a chrome Lamborghini, but the majority of it, I was like, oh, this is a city that's just kind of like in almost like the tropics. I don't know. I have these pervading themes of cities that don't exist. Like, these images that aren't real.
And it happens. All right. It's like, back when we were getting comped all the casino stuff, we ate at one of the really, really fine restaurants that are uptown, and there was a Bugatti Veyron parked in front of the restaurant. Okay, that's something you don't see every day.
Sure.
But again, that's also not something you see every day, even here.
Yeah, anywhere.
You've got the population of the greater New Orleans metro area flutters around 2 million. It was a little less after Katrina. About 500,000, generally speaking, in New Orleans Parish itself, the actual city of New Orleans, that are actually governed by New Orleans, and then the surrounding suburban parishes. But everything is bounded by the river and Lake Pontchartrain. One of the things about it is they're not making real estate anymore. In fact, it's getting eroded. So there's stuff on the other side of the river, but you got to get across a bridge to get to it. And of course, I live on the other side of Lake Pontchartrain, so you have to cross an even longer bridge to get to it. And the state population is about 4.5 million. So about half of the state lives in the New Orleans area. And that's creates a very weird dynamic when you're from New Orleans and you go somewhere else in Louisiana. or you go to Mississippi, which parts of which are because Mississippi is really weird because it doesn't have a large city. Their biggest city is Jackson, which is like 50,000. I mean, it's like New Orleans has bigger suburbs than Jackson, Mississippi is.
Like New Hampshire. New Hampshire doesn't really have any. There's no like hub city. I was gonna say, and we gotta wrap this one up, but I was gonna say, the most stereotypically fulfilling place I've been to was when I interviewed at the USC Keck School of Medicine in Los Angeles. I remember flying out there, and I remember landing and getting off the plane, and like getting out, and like the first thing I saw in like the airport, it was some like super like nutritional smoothie place. And like I didn't really think anything of that, but I remember walking outside, and I vividly remember like the most like beautiful sky, and the weather was so indescribably and you know me, I'm a little bitch. I love like I gotta be climate controlled. It was so beautiful, and it was so serene, and I remember the first thing that popped into my head was, this is too good. This is too nice. I'm not going to get accepted here.
Yeah. I made several trips to Santa Monica for work. And of course, you fly into LAX, and it's about 7 miles away, which means it takes 45 minutes on the interstate. But the thing that I took away from it is that the weather in SoCal is almost, the phrase I came up was oppressively nice.
Yeah.
It's like, it's so nice. You know, it's like there's homeless people sleeping out in the middle of the grass in the park. They're not even bothering to seek shelter because 90% of the time you don't need to. You can just lie on the grass all night and nothing bad is going to happen. But of course, that means that when something bad does happen, no one is prepared for it.
But it is. Yeah, it is. That's what it is.
But California is really weird. Every place I've gone in California has been strange. But the strangest thing in California that I have seen is Fresno. When I flew into Fresno, the landscape is green from horizon to horizon, but everything is in nice, neat little geometric patterns. Because there isn't so much as a fucking blade of grass that humans didn't deliberately put there. It's the Central Valley. It was a desert. And the only reason anything grows there is because we put it there deliberately and irrigate it. Yeah. And it was very striking as we were coming in with the airplane, how green it is and yet how artificial it is. It's like a terrarium or something. And I was just struck that if human beings ever terraform another planet, this is probably what it's going to look like.
Yeah,
because it's going to all be, it's actual plants, but they're all deliberately put where they were by humans. It's very strikingly different from a wild landscape.
It's kind of uncanny valley, right? Mm-hmm. It's
yeah. So that's between that and in Los Angeles, where you've got at least the green stuff in Los Angeles. There is actual wild green stuff in Los Angeles. There's but the whole state is everywhere I've gone in California has just been kind of strange.
Yeah.
And, well, I guess I'm comparing it to Louisiana, so they would probably find yeah, there I am sipping my, gin and tonic and
dressed like Colonel Sanders. And you're like, wow, y'all have some beaches here. I noticed that y'all colors ain't working on the farms. It's just like, Jesus Christ. That's my image of Roger, is a plantation slave owner who takes.
Oh, that's another thing. We only have one beach in the entire state, right?
You take your covered wagon out wester ways to see about business and perhaps acquiring land for the winter months. That's the image I have in mind. And LA is the only one that actually held up to that image. Is I was like, oh, I get.
Well, but that's because Los Angeles is kind of like Fresno, only not quite as bad. It's a completely artificial environment that was created by humans, and so it conforms to your stereotypes because it was created
by
to those stereotypes.
You're right. It was New
Orleans was actually organically evolved to be what it is, and even Atlanta and a lot of the places like that. But the West Coast, you have a lot more. There was explosive growth. It was very artificial, and a lot of what's there, it hasn't been there very long, and it was put there by people who really were being driven by the very stereotypes that you're thinking of. So, yeah, they were aiming for that.
It's almost, and I gotta go, but it's almost like, right? It's almost like topographies of like, or like bird's eye views of like cities on like the East Coast or Europe. And it's very organic and kind of sprawling and weird. New York has the grid, but like it's mostly kind of this weird thing. There's almost an analogy between like those are like the natural blemishes of like me or you, or I have a gap tooth, or our nose isn't perfect, versus like that sort of that nip tuck LA. The city itself sort of reflects the like perfect skin, where it's almost it looks great, but part of you's like it's not real.
Yeah, well, even DC, which was designed from the ground up, to a master plan. Well, that didn't go completely the way that the founders expected it to.
Did you know that George Washington had a brother named Lund, Lund, and Lund kind of ran his properties? And I read this in a book like a month ago, but for some reason I feel like I'm being fake news. So somebody please disprove me. It's a book called How to Hide an Empire, but he had a brother named Lund, Lund, and this was like a tiny little section of the book. And his brother like operated some of his properties for him, and apparently he wasn't like a very strict landlord. So sometimes people would pay, and sometimes he would. And Washington was always pissed off at him. But in my mind, I like to imagine that there was some sort of like Will Ferrell, John O'Reilly, Step Brothers type story happening in the 1700s, where it's Washington. He's this go-getter. Fucking building a nation. His brother Lund is kind of like fat, drinking Bud Heavy, like, no, we'll get around to it. Like, that has nothing to do with the rest of this conversation, but that's been in my mind, and for some reason I've just been laughing at that. Like, Lund Washington, the lesser known beer gut brother that's like, I'll get you the money next week. Like,
that does sound like the basis of a Saturday Night Live skit.
And that's the basis of this nation. Happy 4th of July, everyone. Roger and I will get back to our regularly scheduled programming on Sunday, and we'll get back to reading and everything. Roger, nice shirt, by the way.
Yes, I mean, I just ran across this somewhere.
Ran across it in some merch store, some TPC merch store.
Yeah. We will probably be a little on the later side next week because I got a feeling that my dad is going to score tickets for us to see the Black Widow movie.
Oh, nice.
So I'll probably be getting back around 3 or 4 o'clock from that.
It's fine. Fuck yeah.
Central time.
Fuck yeah.
So.
Oh, real quick. Is Bezos going to space this week, or is that the Virgin Galactic?
I think it was going to be all. No, I didn't think it was going to be all that soon. I mean, I haven't been paying close attention to it.
I just know.
So the last thing that they announced was that the older lady was going to be going with him.
Richard Branson's going to go on the 11th. It's
okay.
Richard Branson to beat Bezos by 9 days. Yeah, I saw a funny tweet, and it was talking about Branson, Musk, and Bezos, and it goes, so the richest people on the planet are all viciously trying to get off of it. Nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
Richest motherfuckers in the world are trying to yeet themselves up there. Huh. Should we be getting out of here? It's like if like Oppenheimer was like, hey, I'm going to walk back another mile during the test. You'd be like, Oppenheimer and Teller are both walking behind the mountains. Like, should we be, do they know something we don't? Like, Bezos, Musk, and Branson are like, we're going to space. We're getting off this planet. And it's like, What?
Yeah, but I think they are explaining to come back after it goes off or whatever.
No, they're going to build Elysium and they're never going to come back. Which is part of our 2050 plan. But
yeah. And one of the most prominent streets in the New Orleans metro area is Elysian Fields.
Oh, really?
I lived 3 blocks from it for several years.
I was going to put the Nike swoosh on this and just say, just do it. But perhaps not colorful.
Well, also you don't want to get sued by someone else.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if... You know what? There's no point in trying to defend a Gavrilo Princip hoodie. I'll just take it on the chin. Don't die on this hill, Tommy. Don't die on this hill.
Yeah.
There are other hills to die on. But
take it from George Hotz, who got sued by Sony. It's just not worth it. Yeah.
I'll go down on this hill. Roger Williams, author of my favorite book, Metamorphosis of Prime Intellect, which will be in the description. I highly, highly, highly fucking recommend it. Happy 4th of July, everybody. Stay safe out there. And America, despite all of its flaws, is a pretty fucking awesome place. So thanks for being here.
Amen.
Hell yeah, Roger. I'll see you next week. God bless, my man. God bless America.
Recording
Stay
stopped.
safe, everybody.